Well, we're out here again. Sketchmaster, fully set up, ready to go. Just brought the engine up a little bit because what I need to do today is make a template and start cutting out some sheet metal. Got me a piece of 1/4 inch plate. Might be a little thin, but I think it'll work. Got a piece of cardboard. Got a tape measure, some straight edges, razor knife. I'm gonna make my template out of this. Probably not ideal, but I think it'll work. It'll at least get me close. So we're going to get down in here and take a look at the cross member and where we need to box it in. Then I'm going to make my template. We're going to transfer it to the piece of steel and then chop up the piece of steel. Now, this isn't going to be as easy as just cutting a flat piece out. The front is nice and flat. The back has curves on both sides. So that leaves me to, how do you bend steel when you don't have even a vise? Got a hammer. Don't have a torch, don't have anything. I think my plan is to cut some grooves in it and bend it over and then have the welder fill in said grooves. It's definitely the way I'm going to do the transmission mount. I've got that 3/8 plate still sitting around. It's too small for what I needed to do up here, but I'm going to use that for the transmission mount. That thing is going to be super solid. It's not going to go anywhere. But we're going to do the same thing with that, and if we have time today, hopefully we can even get to that. Can't promise anything, but that's the goal. So let's take a look at what we're working with here. You can see down here, well, I don't know if you can, but we've got ourselves a little gap there, and this is where we need to fill in with metal all the way across here over to this side. So this is why I'm starting with a template. I need to figure out my distance from there to the other side, and I'm going to have to make some plates that go up and down from these openings, which is probably a little easier to see over here, down to my plate. But you can also see, if I can get you in here, that I've got a swoop here, and that's on both sides. So it's flat on the front, but definitely has some angle on the edges. So I need to figure out where those angles start and start to make some cuts in the back of the metal so I can bend this shape into it. I'm a little nervous about that, but I've got a lot of plate and I really don't have any other choice. So I'm going to get started with the template. Well, we're here in the backyard because there's a little bit of shade. It's hot. I abandoned the idea of using cardboard for a template. No matter how I tried, I could just not get it to fit in there right, especially with that bend. So what I came up with was some tape. Just run-of-the-mill painter's tape. Put it down across the entire thing in a couple of layers, and then I cut it out with a razor knife to the shape that you see here. Nice thing about that, it sticks to the steel. Still going to outline it, because I'm sure I'm going to cut this up. Sparks, things like that. This is what I'm going to use to cut out my piece of metal. You can see, I hope, I've got a little bit of edge here, and I'm going to cut to the outside of my Sharpie line. That way, I've got a little room to grind it down, make my final fits. I've got jigsaw, got some metal blades. Not sure how it's going to do. It says it'll cut 1/4 inch plate. I have 1/4 inch plate. So I'm hoping that'll work. I've also got my angle grinder, got some cutoff discs, got a flat disc on there just to clean things up. But this is what I'm working with. As you can see, I've got enough steel that if I totally fail on this piece, I can start again. I hope I don't have to, but I am definitely ready for that possibility. So now I'm going to make my outline. I'm going to start cutting. Huh? You being a camera dog? Can I get over here? Thank you, Bean. So I'm just gonna follow this line. Like I said, I'm gonna cut to the outside of it. All right, now it's time to make some terrible noises. So as you can see, I've moved my table around. I'm going to leave this extra weight I've got over here until I cut this final piece. That way I don't have to hold this up. I've got my ears because I think this is going to be pretty loud. Oh, wow. Wow. That was more effort than I thought it would be. I'm probably through that blade. I bought 5 though. And you can see my cut is pretty bad, which is why I left the extra room. Now we can come back in here, clean this up a little bit, and make it not look terrible. I don't think this is the ideal way to cut 1/4 inch plate, but it is the way that I have. So I'm going to finish up this cut, and I'll be back. Well, I thought the old jigsaw could take it, and it probably can, but you can see how wide I had to cut some of this to get my angles. So I think what I'm going to do now that I've got a pretty straight spot is I'm just going to use the angle grinder, and then I'm going to cut it back at an angle here, and then I'll use a grinding disc to kind of make my shape. I think it's going to be easier on the tools, easier on me, and just a better idea in general. So, I have my piece mostly cut out. I ended up using the angle grinder to just cut a line across here, and I cut a line across here. And then I got out the grinding wheel and the flap disc, and I just cleaned it up a little bit. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now. So now the plan is I need to make relief cuts in the back side of this, because this is the top facing down. So I'm going to leave this big chunk of steel here as my counterweight. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to cut some lines, I think, this way into the bar to where it's flat in the back. That way I can take these corners and bend them up. I might be better off going this way. Might have to do some of both. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to figure that out, get this flipped over, mark out some lines, start cutting stuff up, because this is not going to fit in the engine bay like this. It will be too long. You can see, I don't know if you can, but there's a taper here. This one's a little bit easier to see. There's a taper here. Now, the idea is when I bend this corner up, it will take that extra length out and make it straight like this. That's what I kept running into with the cardboard, was trying to catch that angle. That's why I ended up using the tape. It just was a lot easier. So 3 or 4 jigsaw blades later, angle grinder, 1 oops on a disc, and I'm at this point, which is progress. So I'm going to keep on going. On second thought. Well, that's enough for me today. I did make a really giant sword. That's kind of cool. But in all reality, I did get the shape cut out that I wanted. I do have a piece of aluminum that I bent up to the right shape, so I can get an idea of how I need to bend this. Problem is, the front needs to remain flat. The back needs to bend like so. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I might make a series of relief cuts at an angle, and then maybe some cross cuts. I don't know how hard that would be to weld. But before I do any of that, I'm going to reach out to some friends that actually fabricate metal and know what they're doing. I'm going to take their advice and go from there. So the next time you see me, we'll probably be chopping lines into this, unless they come up with a way better idea, like take it to their shop and heat it up and bend it. But I'm not quite sure how that's going to go. So next time, we'll have figured out what we're going to do and start doing it. Well, I'm back at it. I need to cut some reliefs in this steel. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm doing, but I have been reading about shrinkage when you weld things. So I'm a little concerned about that. Luckily, like I said, I've got a lot of extra plate here. I really don't want to have to cut out the shape again. Might end up taking it somewhere and getting it cut with a bandsaw if I need to. But I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to cut some marks in it in each direction, and hopefully I can get in there and bend this to the shape we need. I made a little template out of a piece of aluminum I had laying around, which gives me an idea of where it's flat and where it needs to curve. Got my directions set up, so hopefully I can bend this piece of steel into the shape I need, and when it gets welded up, it doesn't shrink into way too short. I do have a little bit of leeway. I'm going to use 1/4-inch plate on the ends to cap the parts where I cut straight down, and that is going to give me a little bit of wiggle room on the left or right. But this is trial and error. Again, I really don't have any idea what I'm doing. So I'm going to make some cuts. I'm going to make some bends. I'm going to hope for the best. So here's a piece of plate. Got most of the shape here. Like I said, I'm going to leave this big chunk on the side. Give me a little stability since I don't have a vise or anything like that. And what I need to do, like I said before, get this back to look like this. That's going to be a fun trick. I'm thinking angled cuts is probably the key, since I need this corner to bend up this way. But really, I'm just going to wing it. I don't really have any other way to figure out what I'm doing. Fast around a little bit. I've got some ideas. But we're just going to have to see how it goes. So what I decided to do is cut up the other side of the plate here first. I realized that I have no idea what it takes to bend this, or how deep I need to cut, or how this metal is going to bend when I start bending it. So I made a tiny little cut here. I've got another series of cuts. I think this should work, but again, I'm not sure. So I'm going to try bending this. I've cut most of the way through, and I need it to bend down, which I had a feeling I wasn't going to be able to do with pliers. So I might try hitting it with a hammer. I might have to cut through further. See if I can show you how deep I got my cut so far. So that's where I'm at, and I'm about that all the way through on both sides. So I've left this tiny little piece here. Might have to get deeper than that. I don't know. We'll find out. Been successful getting some bend on this plate. As you can see, I definitely have a little tail going there. I did come across something though I didn't account for. If I put this piece of aluminum up here, it's flat against the steel. They're both fairly square edges. And now I have this gap to contend with. So on this piece here, I did kind of account for this being a little bit longer, but I didn't really account for this, because this is the shape that it needs to stay. The actual flat part has this shape to it. So if I bend this up and it starts folding this way, it's not going to fit anymore. That piece might be junk. So this was an interesting learning experience, but I think that might be all that it is. See what I did? Just made a series of cuts, and it folded right at these cut lines. But this angle here, It's not gonna work. Might have to go back to the drawing board on this one. I think my plan now is I need to reach out to somebody who knows how to fab. Like I said, might be easier just to cut the cross member down a little bit more, but that's such a thin piece of steel. I don't know if I can get away with that. Again, question for somebody who knows what they're doing. This angle, I don't think I could figure that out mathematically on how much extra metal I need to have to bend it and have it come out square on the back. Not even square. It's got a slant. So I think I'm going to have the welder come over here, pull the engine out, have him take a look at what I'm dealing with before I waste any more of this steel or any more of my time or 50 more blades. I think that's the best idea. So I think that's where we're going to end it today. It's kind of a bummer because I really need this plate in there. I've been talking about motor mounts probably as much as I talked about pressure washing the engine bay. But until I know how much room I have, there isn't any real good way to make them. Plus, I'm waiting for some parts. I might have some plates filled out off of. Looking online, and they make a set for an E30 where connecting piece that comes to the actual mount just bolts onto the plate. And that plate has provisions for AC, which here in Texas, it's mandatory. So this project might slow down a little bit. I do have plans. The next episode might just have to introduce a new project. Or financial decisions, you know, it's the name of the channel, but it's also a way of life. And I got to spread my poor financial decisions around sometimes. So I've got another car that definitely needs some help. It's not going to be a build anything like this, but I think you might enjoy it. So stay tuned, and we'll show you what it is in the next episode. If you don't mind, consider subscribing. If you have any questions about this build or the new build, drop it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps me out quite a bit. Anyways, we'll see you next time.